These 5 women tried to hate on the WNBA savior and quickly got humiliated in a major way, starting with Diana Taurasi, who quickly ruined her entire public image. Taurasi is largely known and respected as the greatest women's basketball player to ever lace them up, and for a good reason. With 3 NCAA titles, 3 WNBA titles, 2 finals MVPs, and a regular season MVP as the league's all-time leading scorer, Diana has been around for a long time and has certainly done a lot for the sport, which even Caitlin Clark paid homage to.
She was probably one of the first women's basketball players I really grew up idolizing and really knowing. Obviously her, Sue, Maya. So I would say that's kind of my first memory is just about the WNBA in general. Is she was one of the first that I really knew about.
Caitlin Clark at every turn has seemed more than grateful to pay respects to the greats that came before her, even if the general basketball audience likes to poke fun at basically every women's player that doesn't have the name Clark on her back. What makes this more mature is the manner that Taurasi was acting as Clark was doing things that were unprecedented for women's athletics. As Caitlin Clark was setting viewership records that toppled that of the NBA Finals and setting scoring records for men and women's basketball in her historic college run, there was never anywhere near this much buzz for any women's sport ever, and it's not even close. Men, women, boys, and children, Caitlin Clark mania brought more eyeballs to the sport than ever before, and likely got thousands if not millions of younger people into the sport in the process. As women have been greatly underrepresented in the sport forever, and as one player attracted a whole new wave of girls who would have never even thought of dribbling a ball, what shocked the world was the goat of the sport's negativity towards the wave that was changing the game.
Reality is coming. There's levels to this thing, and that's just life. We all went through it, and you see it on the NBA side, and you're gonna see it on this side, where you look superhuman playing against 18-year-olds, but you're gonna come with some grown women that have been playing professional basketball for a long time.
Diana is certainly one that wants to give all newbies to her league a harsh awakening, stating in a 4-hour brain-dead live stream with Sue Bird that when she plays rookies, she wants to effing kill them. It's physically punking them. It's mental bullying that takes place right before the ball goes up. It happens in different ways, like, oh, you had such a great senior year, I'm about to bust your ass right now. It's understandable why Diana would be a bit pretentious about the league she's essentially been the face of for 20 years. But when it came to Caitlin Clark, she wasn't just giving her tough love before passing over the keys to the league. She was straight up hating.
Hey, I'm taking Paige. Next question.
So you had the number 1 pick this year, you would take Paige over Caitlin?
Absolutely.
With no analysis or reasoning, Taurasi was going out of her way to discredit Clark for the monumental run that she was on throughout her college career. You could call it showing love for Paige, who shares the UConn connection with Taurasi, but pretty soon it came clear that these blatant attacks were not out of any sort of love. After the controversial exclusion of Caitlin Clark from Team USA, Taurasi was quick to demand the attention that she felt she wasn't receiving.
You were young yourself, and tell me if I'm wrong, weren't you named to the roster as soon as you graduated, right? You were young.
Yeah, after I won 3 national championships in a row, I was named.
It's pretty clear that after being labeled the savior of the WNBA, achieving the milestones and becoming the best to ever do it, Diane is the old bag that's jealous of the girl who's garnering way more attention and recognition than she ever could have dreamed of. Despite what she may want you to believe, the numbers really do speak for themselves. Comparing a 15-point scorer in college to a 30-point scorer, I mean, no shit, the world is more attracted to the girl who was setting collegiate scoring records. The one-sided beef would go silent as the season would begin. But the world certainly didn't forget the words that were said. And more importantly, the world would be patiently waiting for the June 30th matchup of the Indiana Fever and the Phoenix Mercury.
From the NBA to the WNBA, Diana Taurasi, one of the best hoopers in basketball history. You can argue it with your mama. There is no debating her on-court impact. There was plenty of debate over her off-court comments in April about Iowa star Caitlin Clark that had them both in the headlines and seemingly in the crosshairs of the old guard fans and the new wave masses. The GOAT and the Rook will square off for the first time this afternoon.
In a sellout event with over 17,000 people in attendance, tickets to the game are going for a record-setting $2,000 a piece on a day that the weather advisory was telling people to keep their ass inside. But there's no way that was stopping a soul from the best show in basketball that day. Coming out gunning, the most unlikable duo I've ever seen in Taurasi and Brittany Griner were dominating the game, leading by as much as 15 points, but they made one crucial mistake in the process, and that was when they let number 22 get going.
threes come from above the break. Here's Clark, still trying to find her rhythm. A deep pull, got it. To the line for two.
Watch the range right here, Jonesy. When coming off the screen, Allen goes under.
As Clark began to heat up, what became clear is that Diana, after talking a world of shit, was not looking to match up with Clark whatsoever, and really just left her teammates out to dry.
Allen. Clark, she dropped Allen like a...
Letting her teammates guard the player she's been shit-talking for months really isn't GOAT-like in any way. I mean, could you possibly imagine this kind of act from Michael Jordan? Despite a large lead in the second half, led by a 15, 12, and 9 outing from Caitlin Clark, the Mercury blew the game, while Taurasi shot the ball a poor 5 for 14 from the field, and as you can imagine, the world let her know about the statement that Caitlin Clark just made. The pain wouldn't just end there, as Caitlin Clark and the Fever would take down the Mercury twice in the 2 matchups to follow on the back of a 20-point, 13-assist, and 6-rebound performance, and a 29-point, 10-assist, and 5-rebound night. As Caitlin Clark would not only will the Fever, who just 1 year ago were the laughingstock of the league, to a sweep against the best player in league history, but would finish with a better record than the Mercury to conclude the season. And as talks of the end of Taurasi's career is in the works, it's a very real possibility that she's hanging them up without ever taking down her better predecessor. I think it's safe to say that Clark got the last laugh here, but Caitlin may have been laughing even harder after showing up Minnesota Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve. Not only is Cheryl Reeve coaching Caitlin's childhood neighbor to the north, being what Caitlin would consider her hometown team and the first team she ever saw in person, but Cheryl Reeve was also selected as the head coach of the Women's USA team, which infamously cut Caitlin Clark from the roster. Although to the ultra media trained Clark, she let the world know that there was no hard feelings about her exclusion from the team. But behind closed doors, Caitlin's coach stated that she had some other words about the exclusion.
We talked actually on the bus. She got the call on the bus and she texted me to let me know. And, I just tried to keep her spirits. The thing she said was, "Hey coach, they woke a monster," which I thought was awesome.
There seemed to be a little bit of blood boiling, even if they really wanted to keep this one under the radar. And even though Cheryl Reeve's impact on choosing the roster was likely pretty limited, this doesn't take away from the fact that Cheryl was one of the ones dogpiling against the Caitlin Clark wave prior to the WNBA season. This was best seen when a fan commenting under the WNBA's tweet would ask, "Is there a reason why it's not being shown?" referring to the Fever game being played over the Lynx, to which another replied, "Because they only care about Caitlin," before Reeve had to come in with a kill shot stating that part. This weird relationship that involved a seasoned coach in the league kinda hating on a young star got even weirder when Reeve said the following when referring to Caitlin Clark bringing her wave of fans to Minnesota.
It's all around the league. But as a coach of the home team, there's going to be a lot of people cheering for that other side.
I'll get 2 shits.
How about 1?
Not even 1 shit.
This was another matchup that Clark was taking personally, but as the third quarter finished, this thing was really all Lynx. Shooting 3 for 9 with 4 turnovers in the first half was ugly, and going 0 for 5 with 2 more turnovers in the third made this thing look disastrous. With the second best defense in the league, the Lynx were looking more like a pack of Timberwolves, but with a 7-point deficit at the start of the fourth, this is where things started to turn around.
With plantar fasciitis, but her team is beating Indiana, and that's exactly what the Fever needed to start the fourth. Clark. Buckle Carl's knees. Clark passed up the long 3. Into Boston, give the assist to Clark with the Boston finish.
We talked about it to open the basketball game of the last one. Yeah, the block was
17
huge.
points, a career high 16 rebounds for Boston. What a fourth quarter for the Fever as they outscored Minnesota 28-14.
While putting up a fourth quarter rally and turning the Target Center into her second home court, Clark upset the 1-seeded Lynx, hyped up the crowd, and stared Reeve down in the meantime. After watching what was the most packed Target Center crowd since the Western Conference Finals, and watching that even in an off game by Clark's standards shooting the ball, she still managed to do the little things to fuel a major upset. And Reeve could do nothing but tip the cap to her.
That people come to see, right? So when the Wolves sell tickets, there are certain games that they know people are going to come watch certain players. And Caitlin Clark and some of the other rookies give us that. Obviously, Caitlin, being the headliner.
What is tonight like for you, having these people in the same building?
The people in the same building?
Caitlin and Maya.
Well, I wish one was playing for us. Either one. I would take either one.
Although Reeve seems a bit bitter about the success of Clark in the league, it still seems like all things considered, she still has a pretty undeniable knowledge of the game, which is certainly not the same for ESPN's Molly Qerim, who has been saying idiotic things for years now. The girl in the middle of the debate table who rarely speaks up has for years been ridiculed and shit on by basically every person who's watched First Take for more than 15 minutes. And no, it's not because she's a woman or anything like that. It's because when it comes to giving any insight on the game, it's become clear that this is not why she was hired.
You can't sit out. You can't get around our system.
How do you know it's that deep? Maybe they just didn't like the offer.
You can't get around. Oh, that's your opinion. This one is mine. You can't get around our system.
Fire Molly and Cancel Molly posts have gotten major attention since basically forever, but outside of interrupting a bit too often with less insightful takes than the rest of ESPN, which is pretty tough to do, Molly's just kind of been there soaking up free time for the past decade. But as the Caitlin Clark mania has gained more and more buzz, Molly seems to be getting more hate than ever after pushing down Clark to try and prop up others or something like that.
All I gotta say is she's lucky this UConn team isn't healthy. And that's a true statement.
That's not. That's wrong, Molly.
Monica?
That's wrong, Molly. Molly,
like
it's
five
excuses.
top players,
It's
am I
excuses,
right?
Molly.
If Paige Beckerson basically missed 2 seasons, I don't know if we'd be talking about Caitlin Clark the way we are now. And that's facts.
And to that point, it was the two of them.
I said that the other day.
I
said that the other
I was
day.
out of the country.
I'm just saying, don't bring up
so
now
I
that
was
they
out of
completed
the
roster.
As a Minnesota native, I've been saying Paige is gonna be the best women's basketball player ever for like 6 years now. But that for sure as hell doesn't mean I'm gonna put down this chick that's spraying threes from the logo. Forget everyone else for a second, Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark are likely going to be 2 of the best players in the world for years to come, and anyone who's putting down the other instead of propping both where they belong is doing nothing but hindering the growth of the women's game altogether. But this was not certainly the end of Molly's uninvited interruptions of her take on Caitlin Clark.
Stephen A., I could actually argue that it hurts the game more if they had given her a roster spot over someone more deserving.
So go ahead and argue it.
That's exactly what I'm saying, because I think it makes a mockery of the women's game. If the focus on, now we just have to have people because of marketing and their attention, and they're not as talented, and we're not putting the best team out there.
Molly doubling down on slowing the Caitlin Clark train would make sense if you back it up with statistics or at least a solid reason to justify leaving Clark off the USA roster. But when you dig deeper into it, the signs really don't point you in that direction at all. Take fellow guard Chelsea Gray, who in comparison to Clark, produces to essentially half the level of Caitlin on lower efficiency. Hell, you can even look at Diana Taurasi, who failed to reach Clark's production or efficiency in any aspect. You can argue it would be wrong to leave the GOAT out of what's likely her last Olympics, but according to this basketball genius, you'd be making a mockery of the women's game for not having someone more talented.
What we're saying is you guys were right. That's what we're saying. You
No,
were right.
Molly, you did not say that, Molly. No,
I'm saying
no,
it.
no.
What you said.
You did not. That's not what you said, Molly.
What are you guys
That is not what you said.
I literally just brought it up.
You were talking about, and rather than some out there accepting and embracing that, they resented it, and they tried to use the contributions of others who came before Caitlin Clark to justify their vitriol, instead of owning the fact that what really was their objective and what really was their agenda is that they resented the fact that this young lady who came into the league, took it by storm, and drew in a level of attention that they weren't able to draw.
Although Molly faced a lot of pushback for her comments, the rumors of her firing were just that, rumors. Molly likely had a little animosity for Clark in reality, but just as the title suggests, she may just not be the best analyst in the world if you want to call her one. But although it's hard to say Molly truly is a Caitlin Clark hater, that is very easy to say about Sheryl Swoopes. Swoopes has made some major noise as of late that was way louder than her WNBA career, which really goes to show how little noise the WNBA makes, because with 3 MVPs and 4 rings, she's easily one of the best women to ever lace them up. But despite her success and influence on the game, it's clear by her treatment on the Caitlin Clark saga that she cares far more about herself than doing what's best for women's basketball. Sheryl Swoopes began her run of stupidity stirring up drama where good takes go to die on the Gilbert Arenas podcast, after very pathetically attempting to illegitimize Clark's collegiate scoring record.
You asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it.
Okay.
So if Kelsey Plum set that record in 4 years, well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record. Like he or she's killing them, but you have a 25-year-old playing against a 20-year-old. Like you should be killing them. Because you've been doing it a lot longer than they have. Clark right now probably takes about 40 shots a game.
Carry on. I'm sure we've all seen the stupidity unfold in this clip, but for those who don't know, Sheryl Swoopes is lying about objective proofs to prove her points, although I have no idea what her point really is. Caitlin Clark began her collegiate career in the 2020 through 2021 season, and finished in 2024 with actually 1 year of eligibility left that she passed on to join the WNBA. In her college career, Clark played 139 games, which is a whopping 0 over Kelsey Plum, meaning she literally did it in the exact same amount of time, all while being 22 years old, the normal age of a college senior at the end of her rookie year in the WNBA, while taking 20 shots per game at the collegiate level. For what seems like absolutely no reason, Sheryl Swoopes was trying to discredit Clark's accomplishments with no backing, except lies that are very easy to verify as a steaming pile of BS. And after going more viral than she's ever gone in her life for lying, Sheryl had this to say for those who criticized her for her comments.
I'm gonna say this, and then I wanna be done with this whole conversation. So, for people to come at me and say that I made those comments because I'm a racist, first of all, black people can't be racist, but that's the farthest thing from my mind.
Not really sure what any of that had to do with lying on someone else's name, but if there's anything you should know about her, it's that she will do anything possible to not admit that she was wrong. As a predominant member of the media as a color commentator, Swoopes appeared to completely check out of the conversation when her partner was crediting the excellent play of Clark. It can be somewhat excused for co-commentators checking out while their partner shares their own takes, or is announcing news for the fans at home, but what isn't so excusable is Sheryl Swoopes, in the freedom of her own podcast, commenting on the excellent play of the Indiana Fever, turning around what was one of the sorriest teams in the league into a playoff team, all while crediting Clark's teammates and never acknowledging Clark herself. Yeah, I'm sure adding the rookie that's 4th in MVP voting had nothing to do with their uptick in success. Swoop would take essentially any opportunity she can to discredit the woman who found more success in moving the WNBA's needle than she ever did by far, which ate her away to making more and more blatant lies about her.
That's not my point. There's a lot of other shit going on that players are like, this ain't where I want to be.
Over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some new shit going on around there.
It's a lot. So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't
want to be here.
This is where I want to be.
Yeah. Now listen, there's a lot of shit going on. What kind of things do you say?
I'm not in the locker room.
After teammates would come out absolutely shutting down Swoopes' pathetic attempt at stirring up some sort of negative publicity associated with Caitlin Clark's name, Swoopes would take to the internet to deny that she ever even said it. With the measures that she wants to spread garbage on another woman's name, it should be no wonder why Swoopes would be replaced as a color commentator during the Wings matchup against the Fever, and with Nancy Lieberman taking her place, she had some comments at the end of the game that could have possibly been directed in Swoopes' direction.
There were just hundreds of fans lined up.
Oh yeah.
What Caitlin Clark has done for the game is generational, and I just, as a baller to a baller, I just want to say thank you to you, Caitlin Clark.
Absolutely.
For just lifting our game up, you and so many great players. But what you're doing, you're going to make all these women multimillionaires one day, like Tiger did, like Michael Jordan did. And we shouldn't hate on her. We should celebrate her, not tolerate her.
She would later be featured on an episode of the Stephen A. Smith Show, where Lieberman would air out the dirty laundry. See, for many years the two have been very close friends, but after the misinformation that Swoopes spread on Clark's scoring record, she tried to nudge Swoopes in the direction of apologizing, at least for the verifiably false statistics that she spread. And just the small ask of acknowledging that she lied to the public was where Sheryl Swoopes went full kindergartner mode and cut off her longtime friend in the process. It's safe to say that Swoopes' media career is going to be forever tarnished by her jealousy and and narcissistic coverage of Caitlin Clark. But when it comes to Angel Reese, the more controversy her and Clark can start, the bigger she seems to become. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese seem to be a rivalry that's too good to script. As Caitlin Clark was making major noise on the college scene, a national championship in her junior season seemed to be all too fitting for really the first girls basketball player to ever garner mainstream attention. However, as Angel Reese transferred to LSU creating a basketball powerhouse, this was not the case. Angel in ways is a bit of an anti-Caitlin Clark, with a lot of physicality in her play. Angel Reese was bruising her way to a lopsided victory where Angel garnered loads of attention for stealing Clark's infamous "You Can't See Me" celebration, and showing Clark where the national championship ring was going as the clock winded down. Although Clark disapproved of hating on her for trash talk, the internet certainly found their villain. As the Caitlin Clark buzz got even wilder senior year, the much anticipated Elite Eight matchup of Clark and Reese set record-breaking viewership numbers that only snowballed from there. With a 41-point, 12-assist bomb, Clark set down the Tigers in dramatic fashion. But with the WNBA draft coming up, this rivalry would only grow as the two would enter the draft together as college rivals during a time of low league ratings. Very reminiscent of how Bird and Magic surged the NBA's popularity through the 1980s, and for this reason, the two are kind of forever linked in a way. Clark and Reese continued to rise the ranks of the WNBA together. With Caitlin's slow start to the season, Angel quickly skyrocketed to the front runner for Rookie of the Year, especially after the injury to Cameron Brink, and after the surgence of Clark, not only were the two the only rookies selected to the All-Star game, but the two went down to the wire for a Rookie of the Year finish. The matchup of the two would only get more tense after Reese would be seen cheering on a teammate who laid out Clark for no apparent reason, and as Reese would be called for her own flagrant foul for headhunting Clark herself. It really seemed like people were doing anything to keep her from skyrocketing to the top of the league, as 18% of all flagrant fouls were targeted to Clark directly this year. But after the controversies, after the fights, and after the fouls, Caitlin Clark was still your unanimous Rookie of the Year. After what was easily the most unique rise to basketball stardom ever, Caitlin Clark's record-breaking career thus far hasn't come without her own fair share of haters. But at the end of the day, who doesn't love a little bit of drama? Thank you for watching. Check out my last video here if you missed it, and I'll see you boys in the next one. Peace out.